Today, we'll be testing out a new coloring book and taking this cute little bear from this to this. Plus, we'll be doing a lot of it in real time, so stick around. Hello there, colorists! Welcome to PencilStash. I'm Rachel. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, and if you're enjoying my content, be sure to hit that like button. It helps new folks find my channel. I'm going into the archives and pulling up a coloring book that I received directly from the illustrator, Rodrigo Martin Campo. The book is called Amazing Animals, and it's full of wonderfully charming animals, the bodies of which have lots of detail to play with. The backgrounds are blank, but that also allows you the ultimate creative freedom to play with as well. I'll be sure to put a link into the description of the video on where to find this wonderful coloring book. The project we'll be doing today is this adorable bear, and we'll be using our Prismacolor Premier colored pencils, as well as some soft pastels later on for some background work. From my colored pencils, I've pulled a bunch of warm grays, some blues, and some greens, so we'll be doing a lot of fun stuff with color today. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to play just a bit with our blank background here, and for now, I'm just going to roughly sketch in some tall grasses and a pathway with my pencil. This will be a guide / placeholder for completion later with our soft pastels. We'll begin our colored pencil work on this bear's face, since it will be the focal point of our picture, as well as the main source of emotion. I just love the expression on his face, it's so cute. We'll start with this warm gray 10%, and I'm just putting in some lightness around the bridge of his nose here. If you're unsure of the coloring of a bear, I'd encourage you to use Google or a photo service, something that'll give you some inspiration or some guidance in this area. When working with colored pencils too, it's always helpful to start with your light colors first and put those in as placeholders that you want to keep light. Since with colored pencils, once you put in a dark color, it's almost impossible to lighten that back up. But of course, you can always put dark colors over the light ones. So we'll choose some areas on his face that we want to keep nice and light. Remember to feather the edges out with light pressure so that when you put the other colors adjacent, it'll be easier to blend them. Now I'm going to put some true blue and even indigo blue into the areas of fur on his cheeks. They'll be softened later by other colors, but the blue tones will still shine through. I'm going to be incorporating some fun colors into the fur of our furry friend here, so don't be too weirded out by some of my color choices.
Doesn't matter weak or strong. Take your time and do your tricks. All I do is sing along. Yeah, I need you around for brighter light and firmer ground. When you believe in me, love is gonna set me free. Used to be anonymous. Now the world has seen your face. Living life is dangerous, but there's a map for every maze. Yeah, you can be a bird, tell the stories you have heard, and live your life today. It doesn't matter what they say.
And right now I'm kind of going back and forth with colors, putting in a lot of different ones around the features of his face here, just kind of one color, one layer, one area at a time. This process can get a little bit tedious, but if you just stick with it and remain patient, it'll all pay off in the end. Now we'll take our blender and use it to push all these colors together. See how it darkened everything a bit and made it more vibrant? I love the way that the blender does this, but just be aware before you use this blending technique just to make sure that it's the look that you're trying to achieve.
I shut my eyes, trying not to speak, pretend that I'm dreaming. I smell your breath, not listening, but I still hear you screaming. Going under. One step away till you hear what I'm saying. Sounds like thunder. And the clouds are closing in. You see, I know this, but the last days in real life I've noticed. Losing focus, breaking up from our life as we know it. If someone had told me that I will take off and find something great.
Let's move on now to his body. And I'd like to have more blue here, and we'll use our blues in places where you'd normally expect either the light to be hitting or where his fur would be lighter. So we're going to put a large area of it here across his shoulders as well as down the right side of his arm. And just a few more places as well.
Turn my head and hold it high, but it's making me shiver. He's not like you, don't want him to. He's more like the river. Going stronger.
And now I'm going to add a bit of lime peel green here for some color variation.
Isn't how I want to. You see, I know this, but the last days in real life I've noticed. Losing focus, breaking up from our life as we know it. If someone had told.
Now our darker indigo blue for those areas where the light would hit, but perhaps not so brightly. So we're going to use a bit of a darker blue for this effect. The majority of his body will be this 90% warm gray, as I'd like him to read a bit warmer in tone than if I had just used black. And make sure that when you're putting this 90% warm gray up against your blues, that you're actually going into your blue areas a bit and softly feathering that gray into those blue areas as well. It'll create a much softer transition later and you won't get that hard delineation of color. Now we use our blender, and I think the transformation is even greater here on his body than it was on his face. It really brought all these colors together, darkened up our darks, brightened up our blues. I just love this blender. Now we'll grab a couple of green pencils and work on our background. We're going to put some tall grasses on either side of our bear here, because I'm sort of picturing him coming out of like a tall, grassy area into a clearing, so we will design accordingly. And I purposely tried to keep this very approachable. You know, everybody can kind of use these just broad strokes to make these tall grasses here. You know, it doesn't really require a lot of drawing ability. Don't forget to add in a bunch of different green colors, both light and dark, just to give it some visual interest. For the dirt clearing, I'm just starting with a rough foundation of bronze in some horizontal strokes that we'll build upon with some other colors. Now I'm actually going to go in with my espresso and my dark brown to put in the shadow of our bear. When creating shadows on the ground from a large object, just do your best approximating what the size and shape would look like, as we'll fine-tune it later. I'm sticking with horizontal strokes here to be consistent, as I like the texture and pattern that it gives us. I think it really lends itself to the look of a dirt path. Now we're going to break out our soft pastels for our background. And first, let me warn you that pastels are slightly messy, so it's always good to put some scrap paper behind your page to protect the surface that you're working on, as well as the other pages in your coloring book if you choose to leave the page in there. If you'd like a full tutorial on how to use the soft pastels where I go a little bit more in depth, I actually have a video of that in my channel. So if you go to my channel, or actually, you know what, I will just put that in the description for you guys so that you can find it really easily. And you can use any kind of soft pastels here, but mine are these Mungio ones. The sticks themselves are little, but there's a ton of color variety in here, so I like using these. I've pulled a few green colors that I like, and I've tested them out on a piece of scrap, and I will use them all together. And just back to the messy aspect of these soft pastels, just another warning that you will get this all over your fingers, so careful before touching anything that you enjoy keeping light while you're doing this. First, I'll use a cotton swab to rub some of the pastel off the stick and directly apply it to my paper. This technique gives me a lot of control over where the color goes, and I can work in some of the small spaces here. I'm using green instead of blue for our main background here since I want the illusion to feel like a dense forest behind him.
If you thought you weren't made that way, it's the choices we make. We give and take, and I know you will keep trying. Said I think I know what you mean. Pretty good for a dumb machine, and you gave me that smile. We stood there for a while. That was when you woke me up. All this time, I didn't know I had my heart on standby. That it is love that I am feeling inside. What it means to be a human. All this time, I've been a fool for not seeing you shine. I let my circus know say you'll be mine.
For these larger areas, using the cotton swab would drive me crazy. So I'm going to use a utility knife to gently scrape off some of the pastel powder directly onto the page. And I can do this one color at a time and then blend it, or even just scrape off a bunch of colors and then blend them all together after the fact. So I'm going to take my cotton pad, which you buy in a sleeve, and you can usually find it in the makeup section of Target, Walmart, those kinds of stores. But these are not only for makeup, they are great for artwork.
Past romances were telling me I just crash again. I said I think I know what you mean. Pretty good for a dumb machine. You gave me that smile. Stood there for a while. That was when you woke me up. All this time, I didn't know I had my heart on standby. That it is love that I am feeling inside. What it means to be a human. All this time, I've been a fool for not seeing you shine. I let my circus glory say you'll be mine. You are the only one who
Alright, I'm thinking our dense forest is looking a little sad, so I'd like to add some more tall grasses, and I've chosen to just use my soft pastels for this. And you can use these just like colored pencils, you know, use them just like crayons, that kind of thing. So I'm just going to put a couple more strokes in here of some taller grasses, and I kind of like that these will blend a little bit differently than the shorter grasses that we put in the foreground, as it'll just give us a little bit more sense of depth.
I'm looking outside my window. I try to see where my luck goes. I just don't know how it slips out. There must be some kind of plan. Every person could be you though. A pretty guy with a halo. But who am I kidding, please now? I gotta realize
what we could do. Around the world, say to Peru. We lie in bed till it's PM, eating breakfast when it's dark again. Let us sleep, harvesting crime. You and me as Bonnie and Clyde. We'll dance alone in the afterglow. We feel a song on the radio.
And using your cotton pad, you can blend this out as much or as little as you'd like.
It's really amazing how you got me treading on you now. Many beautiful faces, but they're not
Once you've got your page looking good, in order to protect it and keep the pastel from rubbing off onto seriously everything you own, you'll need to spray it with a workable fixative. And this one that I have here is a matte finish, but you can also get it in glossy if that's your thing. And I got this one at my art supply store for about $8 if memory serves. And just another heads up, this does smell like nail polish remover, like acetone, so you may want to spray this outside or somewhere with some good ventilation. And you don't want to spray too much, just a quick pass across the surface, kind of in stripes, will do you just fine, but follow the specific directions on your can of fixative. And he's done! Here's our finished bear. He's adorable. I just love the colors that we added to him. Sort of reminds me of my blue-black phase that I went through in high school. Ah, the memories. If you enjoyed this video, give me a big thumbs up by hitting that like button, and check out the rest of my channel for more coloring tutorials. Before you leave, let's check out the amazing work you talented colorists have been sending me. If you'd like to submit your work for featuring right here in a video, you can post to Instagram using the hashtag PencilStash, or you can post in our PencilStash adult coloring group on Facebook. Hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you guys next time.